started the recording. Yeah, you can go ahead, please.
Okay. Hey, thank you. And I would say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are joining in this community event. Is actually my second time speaking online on Indian community event. I would really like to visit there as well, speaking in person. Maybe let's hope next year, but today we are doing it online. And next 45 minutes we are actually talking about how to manage applications in Teams. My name is Matti Paukkonen. I'm coming from Finland. It's not dark here anymore, so we have a couple of hours of light during the winter time. It's not even cold anymore. It's just -5 degrees. We have a lot of snow, of course, already when it's December. I'm also Microsoft MVP, Office Apps and Services, and I work for a small company called Tahto Group in Finland as a cloud advisor. So working with Microsoft 365, Teams, SharePoint as a spearhead, but also with security devices, other services as well. First of all, thank you to sponsors who have been enabling this, and we can actually have these community events. So, and thank you, of course, for the organizers to making this happen. I'm so glad to be speaking here today. But let's jump into the topic right away. We have a lot of things to cover. So let's remind ourselves first, what is a Teams app? So basically, Teams app is nothing more than a web application. It can be a web page, API, or something like that, but it's basically a web application. It's not really hosted inside of the Teams client. So Teams client is not hosting the actual app. The app is actually hosted somewhere else, like on Azure, AWS, SharePoint Online, if you're using SharePoint framework and are deploying those apps to Teams. Also, Power Platform apps can be hosted on Teams as well. Basically, even in your on-premises environment, you just need to have a network connection there. So keep that in mind. Also, data might reside somewhere else than in Teams or in your tenant. Single sign-on is possible at Azure AD, of course, but it's not, of course, a requirement. You can have another method of signing in to your app. Quite commonly, it's handled with single sign-on because it's easier for the users. And apps can utilize Microsoft 365 data, for example, via Graph APIs for getting your emails, calendars, tasks, whatever app needs to actually work correctly. Then some app types. So first of all, those Microsoft provided apps like lists, sprays, approvals, those are what Microsoft is bringing into the ecosystem as an app. Then some app types of personal apps. It's an app which you can add or pin to the left rail, and you have the whole Teams canvas in use. So basically, it's something which is meaningful for you. For example, in Microsoft world, take tasks. You see your own tasks, your personal tasks, and for example, those tasks from different planners. Or it can be a bot, which you can use for communicate, having a Q&A, whatever is needed. Then there is those tabs, which are added to the channels. They are in the team and a channel context. Again, it's an app where you can bring information to your team, for example, from your external system, ERP, CRM, whatever comes to mind. Then there is bots. There can be just hosting conversations, but they can also be kind of acting as an integrator to another system. So when you're discussing with the bot, you are actually kind of sending data or receiving data from the external system. So it can be just an API to your external system. Messaging extensions, so extending those chats and messages, for example, adding the specific chat message to your task lists or sending it to Jira or vice versa, getting some information out of the external system. Meeting extensions, example, forms polls, so you can add your custom apps to meetings as well. So having that side panel in use or even having the meeting canvas in use. So using, for example, polling things or handling your kind of a meeting notes or whatever comes to mind in that that scape. Then the webhooks and connectors. So basically just enabling you to receive information from the external system to your conversations automatically, or just mentioning your outgoing webhook and sending something to your external system. So kind of integrating again. And then there's Power Apps and virtual agents as Power Virtual Agents, which you can use in Teams scope as well. So adding Power Apps as a tab or adding Power Apps as a personal app, and the virtual agent you can use for enabling, for example, like a Q&A bot or something like that. So I think we can say that Microsoft Teams is a platform for apps. There's already over 1,300 apps in App Store, of course, Microsoft apps, but there is a lot of those third-party apps. I think the majority is actually a third-party apps made by vendors, which have been published through Store, available for users to use. And by default, all of these apps are actually available for all of your users to just install it in Teams and start using it. And here you can see just a fraction of, so for example, quite common apps like Miro or RSS feed and Zapier and those kind of things. All apps may require access to some data from your environment. For example, if it's doing something with your calendar, probably it needs an access to user's calendar, so app can read the calendar data. It can also store data outside of your tenant, and it's basically outside of your control as well then. So if you're having, for example, some kind of a CRM solution, it will store data somewhere else, and you need to take care of that data because it's not in your actual Microsoft 365 tenant. And it's quite common that those apps require some kind of a licensing. You probably have a trial period to start from, or if you want to use some advanced features, or you have some kind of, for example, messaging quotas, if you want to increase those, you probably need to buy a license. And this has nothing to do with Microsoft licensing. It's always licensing from that app vendor. So, and I will show you later how you can actually what is the way now to purchase those licenses. But that is something to consider because it will bring more costs. And if people are not aware that you probably need a license for that, they might start using the app and they will hit the wall, the payment wall, then when they're actually go forward for after the trial period or want to get more advanced features in. Then some needs for governance, because in a modern world, people are using apps in their mobile phones, and I see a lot of people, they don't really care about what permissions they are giving to the app. They just want to use it. So app may have permissions to your contacts, your location, your medias, your messages, your phone calls, and people just click approve. And I have seen that same thing happens in our Microsoft ecosystem. So there isn't just an example. I just tried to find an app which actually requires a lot of permissions to work correctly. And I would say that first of all, how many users actually read, for example, those privacy and licensing agreements of an app? So how data is handled, where is it located, what are the licensing requirements, trials, that kind of things. I won't say not so many, probably. That is something we need to educate the users in the future as well. Then how many users consider these permissions? They see this, they want to use this app, that, hey, this is a cool app, I need to use this, description was good, I just click accept. And it means that that app actually can read your mails, your calendars, manage your tasks, read your files, read all of your site collections and write them, and read items there. So quite a lot. So if the user clicks accept, user consents this app to access that data from the Microsoft 365 environment. I'm not saying here that you shouldn't trust these apps. I think all the store apps are actually quite trustworthy. It's more about that if the app stores something, for example, you need to know where it stores, and we in European Union, we need to take care of our GDPR and everything related to the personal information handling. But users don't really read these. And of course, I would say that users are not actually really interested that where the data goes, or is it storing data somewhere else outside of our organization. And if you, for example, have something to our public organization or government, you really need to take care of these things. This is just one example of how you can actually control the user consent from the last example. So you can, of course, deny everything. So people cannot use or start using any apps by themselves because they cannot consent even for basic sign-in features or sharing their profiles, which is actually mandatory when you want to do a single sign-on. But you can limit it out, for example, that users can take applications in use from the verified publishers and with selected low impact permissions, which means actually just sharing information what is needed for making the single sign-on. And this is on the Azure AD scope. Teams is just one part of it. This is on the Azure AD scope. It means all the apps where users can use their Microsoft identity to sign in. So basically everything what is available in the world. So all the web pages, all the services where you can use your ID kind of identity to sign in, you can control it on Azure AD level. There is also a control for user consent in Microsoft 365. You can control there, but it's kind of a block or allow. So there is no kind of that middle part. Just to keep in mind that you can also control which apps users can actually deploy themselves. Then the app side about app templates, a little just there is Microsoft have provided some app templates which already are things you can use. Start using, for example, company communicator. You can deploy that to Azure, install it to Teams, and start using it for messaging your users. Or, for example, that shoutouts, you can just deploy that to SharePoint and start using it on your environment. Everything is open source, available on GitHub. Detailed deployment instructions are there. There are Power Apps, Azure hosted apps, also something hosted on SharePoint. And I will quickly just show you that you can see what is there. So this is the actual site where you can find all the app templates for Microsoft Teams. There are highlighted couple of kind of a common apps or top apps there, like company communicator, that coworker appreciation app. But there's actually close to 50 apps there if you scroll to the bottom. And here you can see a little bit of detail. For example, this app is actually for kind of a deployed on Power Apps. And if you go to the GitHub side of a specific app, there is a customized installation guidance. You can see also the architecture guidance there, how it works, what is required. And even if it's hosted in Azure, you can actually see some kind of a cost estimation, what services you need to deploy. So this is the way to start, for example, if you are starting the app customization or building an app for your organization. There might be some good examples even available about the architectures and things like that. Then another thing about templates, there is also templates in Power Apps app in Teams. If you add the Power Apps app, you can actually see these 8 apps in the bottom, and you can start just using them, for example, gathering employee ideas or having a milestones app for tracking your projects or teamwork. So there are a lot of templates available, template apps which you can use already. Then how the app is deployed to Teams, there are several ways. So uploading a custom app, it's quite commonly called sideloading. By default, it's enabled for everyone, and I will show this on a demo how it works. How can I upload just an app to Teams? I have a small demo app there. Then there's the app submission, so users can submit apps, and then there is approval from the administrator side. I will show that on the demo as well. Then if you have a SharePoint Framework web parts which support are in the correct version and support Teams, you can just deploy those directly from SharePoint app catalog to Teams using Sync to Teams button, and it will just install the same SharePoint Framework web part to Teams side, and it can be used as a tab or a personal app. From Power Platform, add to Teams, you can use that directly or just download the zip package, which is actually just an Teams app package, and use that to deploy it to Teams. And for admins, of course, when you are doing custom apps, uploading them via Admin Center. And then finally, for example, if you're an app vendor, you can automate it with Graph API as well. But let's jump into first demos. Let's go see the side loading, how it works, and app submission. So here I am at Teams. I haven't changed any policies regarding apps. So basically everything is enabled for me. So when I click apps, there is upload a custom app. I will click it and just upload for me or my Teams. And I have the zip package here. Teams app package is actually just the manifest file which describes this information, describes the tabs, describe the web pages it's connected to, is there an Azure AD app, kind of it describes the app, and then there is just a couple of logos added. That is nothing more. That's the Teams app package. It's just a manifest and a couple of images. And I will add it. Now it's added to me. As a developer, I want to test it out. And this is just a simple Teams app. It will just display the event web page, nothing more. So nothing fancy there as an app side. So basically, this is quite simple to create, and I just uploaded it. Now it's on my Teams app. I will install it, and it will install it from my scope because I added it as to myself. I didn't add it to a team or specific. I can also use this to upload a custom app to my organization, and it will appear under the build for your org side on the app catalog. But I will now do the submission. So submit app to a catalog, and just click submit app, and pick the same app. I'm actually just submitting this. And now I already see that I have submitted this to the app catalog. It's still pending there. And as an administrator, I will jump off to the Teams admin side, find the Teams apps, and this is the App Store content in Teams. Actually, there is now 1,304 apps on my environment. Of course, custom apps are as well there. I see that there is one submitted custom app there, and I just sort this a little bit. And as you see, there is a M365 Bangalore app. It's in blocked state. Submitting status is submitted. I can just click it as an admin. Of course, see the details. I will show these a little bit later. The complete details, what the app can have, and I can just go here and publish, and the state changes. Now the custom app is published, and it's also allowed. It will be available for all of my users currently because I haven't done any restrictions yet. So that's shortly about deploying an app easily, app submission. Let's jump back to the slides. Then the app governance side, which is, I think that it's the main topic for today. So you can do app governance basically on 3 different levels. So first is organization-wide settings. So it's kind of a yes or no. You can disable third-party apps, so no one can use them There is no kind of exception for that. It's the tenant-wide setting. It actually denies all third-party apps. Setting for new third-party app published to the store. So basically, our new apps actually just in published or blocked state, and of course, interaction with custom apps. Then the app catalog. You can use app catalog to block and allow apps if you want to do it, for example, that 1300 times. And I see that is kind of huge work also to use app catalog to do that. But I would prefer going and using Teams permission and app setup policies and use whitelisting for apps, because there's good apps, probably users want to use them, probably there is some integration for your backend systems, you want to take that app in use, but then also limit out other apps so people are not just freely using anything they like. But let's see that for the next demo. So let's see first the app catalog functionalities. I will show something what you need to investigate from the apps as well, then the app policies, and then apps usage report as well, because that is a useful tool when you are starting to implement some control there. Let's go here. Okay, first, we are back in the app store. So I'm just now sorting this out to get a couple of apps there. I'm just showing some examples which apps have been actually certified. So there is now also a certification program, and for example, sales team is now Microsoft 365 certified. So it has gone through some kind of a certification path to actually get a certification. Let's open it up. So first, when you are looking for an app, of course, the basic information, you have links to the privacy policies and terms of use. Probably for an admin, good things to check out also when you are introducing new apps. Developer information, permissions. Well, no permissions here. This app doesn't require permissions, or you cannot actually consent permissions through Admin Center for this app. It might need some permissions as well, maybe in the documentation. No settings, but this side is actually that you can see security and compliance, for example, what data security regulation it have passed, or for European Union, for example, the GDPR regulations, is it compliant for that side? So this is a good information also to check out. And then there's a plans and pricing. Sales team didn't have anything on the plans and pricing side, but let's take another app. I think the priority matrix was a good example for that. Yes, let's open it. Same thing, basic details about the app and developer permissions. This app requires some organization-wide permissions. So you can actually check them out, that what permissions this app actually needs for your organization. You consent them as an admin behalf of your users and behalf of your organization. So you can review them here. And as you can see, this app requires permission to read user mails, user calendars, user tasks, task lists, and all files that user can access. So this app needs these permissions. And when you click accept, you actually consent this app to your Azure Active Directory, and it has these permissions to your data via Graph API. And if you are introducing the new app, you actually need to do this phase to make the app work correctly. But let's hit cancel. I'm just reviewing this now. So let's hit cancel. So nothing happens. I can close this. Another thing I wanted to show is the plans and pricing. I haven't really tested out yet how this works, but basically you can buy a plan for this certain application, and then you can manage those licenses and add more licenses via Microsoft 365 Admin Center once this is done. So as you can see here, for example, if you want to use this app, There is a trial period, I think, but after a trial period, it's actually €6, which is something like maybe $7 per month per user. So this is actually what is coming from the apps. All the apps are not really haven't used this monetization yet, so you need to probably purchase the licenses separately still. But I think all the apps which have licensing will come to this portal later on. So as an admin, you can see that what are the costs, and then you can manage the apps on Microsoft 365 Admin Center later on. And just one thing for the admin, let's just put here our friend Viva. Then there is apps which you can customize. So for example, Viva Connections, you can customize this app to personalize it to your organization. There's several apps where you can change the name, probably a description, and change the icons so it will look like branded to your organization then. Okay, but managing the apps in the app catalog. So you go pick apps here or pick all, which is not possible, and then click block. Do you really want to block because apps? Because I have seen that there might be something like 10 apps introduced in a couple of weeks back. So I think this was something like 1,290 a couple of weeks back. So probably you don't want to control the apps in this app catalog. Better way to make control is actually use permission policies. So permission policy is actually a policy where you can control, let's take a global one, that what applications are actually in use. And this enables whitelisting. So I suggest maybe keeping the Microsoft apps. So you allow all Microsoft apps, they are available for your users. But for example, for third-party apps, you could do that. I just allow specific apps and block others, because I see that whitelisting apps is always a easier job than handling kind of a blacklisting the apps. So maybe I just add here that I want to have Poly for my users, and maybe a Trello also. And users are really happy when they get Poly and Trello there. You can also do this for your custom apps. For example, when you have a custom app, I had that Microsoft 365 Bangalore. So this is now enabled for the global policy. Hopefully I'm not limiting out my features for the next demos. Another thing is the setup policies, where you can control, let's see the global policy again, and you can control that can users upload the custom apps, or can they use the side loading? And probably for regular users, I would keep this off, so they are not uploading just anything they find there. User pinning means that if it's enabled, user can change the left rail by themselves, pin apps, remove apps, switch, kind of reorder them. I would probably keep this on, because probably people want to use a little bit different set of apps there. But if you want to have a really strict control for example, for some group of your users, I would say like frontline or first line workers who are using mobile, probably it would be a good idea to just get those 4 apps available for them and making another policy group for frontline workers. It's possible to install new apps right away for the user. So if I want to have Poly for all of my users, I can just add Poly here, and it will be automatically installed to the user. Of course, it's not enabled in all the ways if you need to sign in or something like that, but it will be installed, and it will greet, for example, Poly will greet all of your users when it's automatically installed. And the final thing is, of course, controlling the left rail. You see, I have been adding Viva connections there already, but if I want, I can add that custom app as well. Click it here, add it, and just, for example, I want it to be a second one on Viva connections. And when I save this, it will take some hours to actually complete and the Teams client to actually pick those changes up. So it's not instant. If you change something, it won't happen right away. I would say that maybe 24 hours is the max. How I have been doing this, I have been just introducing policy in the afternoon and said to the users that it will be available for you in the next morning. And that it's quite common that happens that way. So waiting a few hours, the policies will update. Okay. And hey, just already forgot the app usage report. So Teams Admin Center, Analytics and Reports. Go to Usage Reports, and there is app usage report. I will take it to 90 days and run it. And now I can see that what apps are actually in use. This might feel quite confusing. That activity, what is this? This is actually an activity feed calendar. It's actually the Teams calendar. So as you can see here, everything Teams is considered as an app. Chat is an app. Files is an app. Then there's list, OneNote, share conversations, even app. So everything which is running on top of Teams client is an app actually. Even a Teams is an app, considered as an app there. And I see someone has been using Draw.io custom app. Someone has been using Ahoy team app, not actually just one user, 2 active teams. So this can be used to discover what apps are in use. And when you start making the policy changes, you are not blocking something people are already using, because when you block the app, the access to the app is actually denied, but data will reside to the app side. So it won't delete data from the Ahoy team if I just block it or I'm not allowing it. Okay, back to the slides. So here, just kind of wrapping up what I just as a best practice. So keeping those Microsoft apps enabled, whitelisting those third-party apps, maybe whitelisting your custom apps if you're building those or having those on your environment, and blocking the side loading for regular users. I think you are quite safe then. Then if you want to, for example, experiment new apps, creating a pilot group for testing new apps, creating a permission policy for that, whitelisting or adding all available, it's mostly your decision. And if you want to enable development, also create a setup policy for that. So let's just create those as a demo as well. So basically, I will just go to the permission policies. And global policy is always the baseline where users are. So each Teams user needs to be in a single policy in all of the policy types. So there's a lot of policy types. I will show you a short example about those a little bit later. But let's create a pilot group for piloting the apps. And as you see, I created the new one. It already took my settings from the global policy. So these are allowed. Maybe I add a couple of more apps here. So Teams, Stack Overflow for Teams. We want to try that out. Maybe something related with tasks. Let's take a work jam tasks. And now people who are part of this pilot policy group are actually able to use also these apps. So I will just save it quickly. Assigning users. So basically you can use that, just manage users here, add myself there as a single user. This is quite confusing because you cannot directly see who is actually added to what policy group. So probably you need to take a report with PowerShell or just see them by user. And group assignment for a permission policies is not possible. So you cannot assign it to a group. You need to use either this way or batch assign from the Teams users. I will show it a little bit later, or use PowerShell and, for example, CSV file to assign those. Then the setup policies, let's enable developers. So let's create a new policy for developers, and they are able to use custom apps. Nothing more changed here, just that they can sideload and test the app, for example, your organization is building. Let's do that. Okay, it says something about pinning, and we have a group there. Same way, we can also assign users directly or from the Teams or PowerShell. But on app setup policies, also the group assignment works. So maybe we just jump on the demo on that one. Let's first batch assign some people to the pilot group on app permission policy. So I will go to users, Teams users, manage them. I will just pick a couple of just me and my colleague and go here, edit settings, and app permission policy. I will check the pilot group here and click apply. And of course, again, it will take few hours when the users actually see the changes. So they are not instant in this phase as well. But let's go with the group assignment for using PowerShell so we can assign the developers group there. So I will open a PowerShell window. I'm already connected to Teams because it took a little while. So basically this command-led new CS group policy assignment, I'm having a group ID for developers here. It's now, I think, Azure AD security group, but you can use, of course, Microsoft 365 groups there. Policy type is Teams app setup policy. Policy name, which I just created, is developers. I will rank it as the first in order, because if you have a lot of these, you can use rank to actually decide what group policy assignments are and which order they are. So what is actually active for the user. Let's run it. And then we can actually just check out that it's there. And as you can see, there is an app setup policy for developers. It's ranked 1 and it's created today in the morning. Let's see how that is visible on the environment. So if I go managing the users, and I will pick myself and see the policies. Now you can see that app permission policy here is direct assignment. So if you batch assign, it's always a direct assignment to that specific user. What it means, let's click details. So this is the order how Teams policies are managed. So if I have an app permission policy directed to me, it's the kind of a highest priority. If something is coming from the groups, I will show the how this looks like in the app setup policy. It's the second one, and then the ranking order of groups, and always the fallback is the global organization-wide default. So one of these policy groups is actually assigned to a user. And if we see this developer, you can see that there is no directly assigned policy for me and inherited from group assignment, which I just made, is this that myself or my user setup policy is from the developers policy. It's not the global organization wide. And if you see, for example, someone else, let's just take, for example, him just shortly. So basically he's in the global policy on these sakes. Okay. Let's hope the group assignment is coming to the Teams, kind of those app permission policies, because that is really needed on some cases. Then you can control app permissions based on groups, not based on people. And here's just shortly the same thing. And I think already did the demo. So I think it's time to wrap up a couple of things. So I would say that if you don't have consideration about apps in all of the Microsoft 365 environment, of course, consider them as part of your governance model, create a governance model for them, how do you want people to use the apps, and are people allowed to consent and give permissions up by themselves, or is it always by admin? So those things need to be considered in your governance model. Use permission policies and whitelisting rather than blocking, because you can actually enable just a few apps and all the others are blocked from the users. And then you can make exceptions. If you are blocking something on the tenant-wide level, there is no exceptions for that. And when you are actually blocking some apps, you need to have a process for approving new apps for your users. So if there is something interesting or they are have been using some tool, maybe having a process to investigate, maybe then approve, have licensing applied to the certain users. So having a process there is important. As an admin, it's your role to investigate the requirements, licensing, privacy, data residency things, security things of an app when they are introduced. I would say that there needs to be some control. And when you start implementing these, use those app usage reports to discover what apps are actually in use. So you are not blocking something which is actually kind of blocking the productivity of the users. Okay. Any questions? I see Hans mentioned that in large companies, most admins block all third-party apps. I think that appeared in that phase. Was it correct? Maybe Hans is not present anymore. And as mentioned, certification is a long time process also. But any questions? Okay. Hey, there's a link for feedback. Also a QR code for feedback. Please give us feedback for the event. Please, you can give me a feedback directly through my social media channels. Also, I would like to connect you all. If you have any questions, you can ping me on Twitter or LinkedIn. I'm always there available. There is my blog site also, where I'm having all kinds of technical blogs around Microsoft 365. But I would say that it's then, if there isn't any questions, it's time to say thank you for your participation. Thank you for the organization. That it was fun to be here. And of course, thank you for the sponsors to making this event happen. And there's a quiz and there is some prizes, so don't forget to participate on the quiz. In the next session, Nikki is going to talk about building a Teams creation workflow using Power Automate. I would say this is a really interesting session, upcoming session then. But on my side, thank you for your interest.
Thank you, Matti. Thank you so much for your time, and it was a great session. Thanks for your time. Hi, Nikki, are you there?
Yes, hello, I'm here. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you, Matti. Thank you so much again.
Thank you.
Yeah, Nikki, like you can share your screen, like we can quickly check it, like if
Yep.
everything is fine, and then we can start the session in 7 minutes. Yeah, as per the schedule.
Okay, perfect. Hold on.
Yes, I'm able to see your screen and I'm able to hear you.
Okay.
Let's wait for 5 more minutes and then we can start it. Thank you so much.